The way that you move your body can take you closer to your natural self or further away. And I think it's possible to take that suppleness back from those stiff bodybuilders that stole it from us. I'm gonna show you how I've managed to take back my mobility, fluid movement, and kind of rewowed myself over the course of 2 days in my life.
So I think squatting is such a good entry point into caring about mobility and movement more. For anyone that's just getting into this world, spending 10 minutes a day in this deep squat position, don't expect instant results, right? Commit to this for a few months, and then all of a sudden you're gonna hit a day where you're like, oh my gosh, this feels so natural, right? This feels so strong and mobile down here. Oh wow, my back hasn't been acting up like it has been. My legs feel stronger from supporting myself low so much. For me, I find that the stronger I get low to the ground, the better my body feels when I'm standing. But this makes sense, right? Everyone's been finding tons of value in fuller range of motion training. So instead of ignoring these deep, uncomfortable positions, we get ourselves there more often and we ask our body to adapt to it.
Sitting in a deep squat is also like a gateway into other mobility training. I know so many people who started with the deep squat challenge and then they've just got way more interested in stretching and mobility, and now their flexibility has transformed. For me, it's really pushed me into other styles of moving low to the ground, whether that's more of a slow stretching flow or a faster animal movement flow. I've had shoulder issues my whole life, and I know that they stem back from some injuries that I had playing high school football, American football. And it's interesting, like when you get older, you start to feel the repercussions of these things that happened when you were young, but you know, they've had these long-term effects in my body. Hanging has been one of the things I found most valuable for getting the shoulder back on track. Now this guy, Dr. John Kirsch, has done a lot of research into using hanging as therapy for people having shoulder issues, shoulder pain, shoulder impingement. And he's found in the shoulder joint that there is this thing called the acromion. And what can happen through not exercising, not hanging, and slumping at a desk is it becomes hooked like this. And that can kind of compress some of your muscles and tendons and lead to impingement and pain. Now, what's really interesting is that he's found that hanging can literally start to reshape that bone in the other direction to where it's supposed to sit. The way he discovered this was at a park with his kids. They were doing the monkey bars. He tried to do it and he just got massive shoulder pain and couldn't do it. And he thought, like humans are supposed to have this function in their shoulder. So maybe if you don't have this anymore, you're gonna run into shoulder problems. I think that makes total sense. His protocol is to use some hanging along with some light weightlifting exercises, but also monkey bars are consistently found everywhere around the world. It makes a lot of sense to me to go to the source. Let's slowly reteach ourselves how to brachiate, and hopefully that can lead to healthy, well-functioning shoulders for our whole life. To get started on monkey bars, we do need to establish our ability to hang from 2 arms. I think everyone can work up to a 30-second dead hang, and you can start with your toes down on something if it's too challenging in the beginning. The next prerequisite is I like to see someone be able to do head taps for around 15 to 20 seconds. I found this to be easier than one arm hanging for most people because you only stay on one arm for a second or 2. It also teaches you to pull and get the shoulder active out of a dead hang position, which has a lot of carryover into monkey bars. Once you have those down, getting into the monkey bars is quite easy. You can start with doing a side-to-side swing. Although the shoulders take all the load in brachiation, the feet and the hips really steer the ship. Once you feel confident, it's really just about doing one swing forward to test how the shoulder feels. You'll start to gain some strength and confidence and be able to move forward more effortlessly. Over the course of the last few months, I've built this adult monkey bar cage, and I gotta tell you, it's been so fun being able to run, jump, swing, and just play like a kid. On this specific session, I wanted to see if I could combine this running jump with getting into brachiation fluidly. Originally, I wanted to jump to one arm, but that was way too scary.
And I started to figure it out right about here. Hey guys, quick ad for the Human Animal Method. This program is all about natural movement. I can honestly say there's no program out there like this. We combine ground movement with swinging on bars, calisthenics, and simple running and jumping drills. You'll rewild your movement and it'll be a lot of fun. Half off for the next 2 weeks. This simple tool right here, I've been blown away with how this can free your body. It may look silly, but what I'm doing is I'm using my spine to move this rope, right? So the opposite of what we're doing in a gym when we squat weight, do any standard exercise, is we really stiffen up our spine and we stay still. But human movement is all locomotion based, right? It's moving like this. We want the spine to move. So you simply get yourself a piece of rope and you start swinging it. We can go underhand like this, and we shift our weight from foot to foot, and we start to think about letting our spine and our chest move to do this swing. In the beginning, it'll be all your arms, but then the hands start to stay in a relatively small space, and it's your spine, your hips, your ground connection that is moving this rope. Then we can do overhand. It's the same thing, but now we're just moving in a bit of a different trajectory here. And then we learn dragon roll. Dragon roll hits one time on one side, one time on the other. And what does this mimic but a throwing motion, right? So now we're getting this good spine rotation instead of doing a bunch of stretches like these. Stretches are great, but this is doing it in an actual movement that's quite natural for us as humans. If you think this thing is kind of goofy, if you're not sold on it, I relate. That's how I felt in the beginning. Watch my video on how rope flow changed my body, but not just for the video. Read the comments. There's so many people that are finding so much value in rope flow. Of course, the other huge benefit is the flow. Once you learn all the specific movements, then you start to connect them. The next thing you know, you're moving without thinking. Feeling so hungry after all that movement. Right now I'm fasting in the mornings. Usually fast for summers, you know, and then fall, winter, I'll get back to eating breakfast, but this is what my lunch is looking like / breakfast. Some ground beef, eggs, kimchi, nuts. I'm gonna have a bunch of raspberries for some carbs. And then it's actually raw milk that I get from the farmer's market. Oh, so good. And because I'm leaving soon, I'm trying to finish off the jug. And then Olipop, oh my gosh. It's like my teenager self who used to drink soda just wants to pop these all day long. Strength training is actually quite simple. As long as you use progressive overload, you'll get stronger and build muscle over the course of time. The less time that you have for training, the more you should keep it simple. Do your compound lifts, squat, push, pull, deadlift. Use some load in the form of barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell. But I have to credit calisthenics for really changing my perspective of what strength training can be. One of the coolest things about calisthenics is you learn how to control your body against gravity. So I could sit down on a bench and do military press, but how much time of the day do I already spend sitting down? To learn how to overcome, or at least work with, gravity is a very beautiful process, if not very frustrating at times as well. But we don't have to move to one end of the spectrum. We can combine calisthenics with weighted movements, and I really believe that this is the future. Now, the big benefit to weights is that they're measurable, and it's easier to target and isolate muscles, making it a great way to build muscle. And I've kind of fallen in love with the sandbag over the course of this year. I think the lift feels so natural. It's very similar to when I pick up my toddler son. This is something I think about a lot in my training these days, is what feels natural for the body. Now, one of my inspirations to get into sandbag was Nsima. And listen what he says here from a video coming out in a couple weeks.
It teaches you how to create intelligent tension to meet the demand. So when you're lifting a heavy barbell, you've been trained to You're trained to create as much pressure as possible so that your torso doesn't buckle under the load. But with the sandbag, when you learn to do this while you learn to breathe, you learn to create the right amount of tension, like we were just talking about for the demand, that intelligent tension. So the amount of tension you'll create will be more and more the heavier bags that you lift. But you'll never create more tension than you need to because you're learning to use the breath to lift the load.
I think he elegantly described why I became so stiff years ago from lifting so many barbells. Now, stiffening the spine definitely has its place in training to create a lot of force. But if that's the only thing that you're doing, then, oh, man, you're probably going to run into issues down the line. Now, sometimes people think that calisthenics is safer and there's less injuries. I don't really think that's the case. I think there's just as many injuries in calisthenics to elbows, wrists, and shoulders. But I do think that the spine gets less stiff because you're not loading it constantly with a barbell on top of it or picking it up from the ground. So the fourth practice that I think is so valuable for anyone is to combine calisthenics with weights. It feels good to be strong, no matter how you're training, whether it's with a tool or with your body weight. Understanding that there's different forms of strength and there's different ways to achieve a certain outcome in your body, this is what's gonna keep you training for decades rather than quitting soon.
Hey, you.
I think when we go out into nature, it does a lot for us physically and mentally. I find when I get out on the trail for a hike or when I go to the park to do a movement session, my body naturally feels more relaxed. I breathe easier. And I think that this rewilding effort is very valuable for all of us. There is no separation between the body and the mind. And we gotta honor the fact that we come from nature. And I think when we do this, the body, the movement, everything is optimized.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Let your eyes kind of defocus and look at horizons to feel, water against your skin, or to jump off something and to be suspended in air. All these like qualities that we're not really faced with in everyday life.
I just launched a new program called the Human Animal Method. It's all about rewilding your movement, using animal style crawls, rolls on the ground, and some hanging and swinging from bars. We'll combine that with some simple calisthenics training, some jumps and running, and even lifting some sandbags. If you're interested, take advantage of the half-off sale we're doing for the launch for the next 2 weeks. First link below.